Alrighty, y'all. It's Mr. Montana here. What we're going to go ahead and do today is we're going to talk about quadrilaterals. We're going to hit day 2 of quadrilaterals. On day 2 of quadrilaterals, we talk about the remaining quadrilaterals that we have not already talked about. All right. So the quads we haven't talked about, the first one we're going to be dealing with is a rhombus. And so when we're looking at a rhombus, y'all, our rhombus is going to be what I like to call our drunk square. So I'm going to write this out here. All right. And the reason I call it that is because we've all seen, someone drunk, whether it be in a movie or in real life. Well, they really can't walk standing straight up, right? They kind of walk all over. It's when I have police officers have you do the walk in a straight line test, right? And they can't manage to walk in a straight line. So I call it a drunk square because it holds essentially the same exact properties as a square. It just happens to be a little slanted, which is going to mess with one thing, which is the angles. So all 4 sides are going to be congruent on a rhombus. And then we're also going to have the opposite sides that are going to be parallel. So that's still the same. And they're also going to be congruent, right? Opposite angles are also going to be congruent. And therefore, consecutive angles are going to be supplementary. And this is kind of where it changes from in comparison to a square. When we're talking about the diagonals are going to bisect. And when we talk about bisect, y'all, you should think instantly cuts in half. And they are going to be perpendicular. All right, they bisect and they're going to be perpendicular. And then the diagonals bisect as well, the angles. So let's go ahead and start labeling this and drawing our identifiers. So we know that all 4 sides are going to be congruent. So a tick mark, tick mark, tick mark, and a tick mark. Then it says opposite sides are parallel and congruent. So opposite sides are going to be parallel and congruent. So for parallel, we need to draw our arrows like that. The opposite angles are going to be congruent. So this angle M right here is going to be congruent to angle P. And then angle O to angle N. Needs 2 arches. All right. And then now we get into the diagonals. So it tells us that the diagonals are going to bisect each other, which means they're going to cut each other in half into equal portions, and then they're also going to be perpendicular. So I'm going to have something like this. And so since they're perpendicular, I'll go ahead and draw the boxes like that. And then we said they bisect, so that means that this is going to be congruent to that. And then that diagonal is congruent to that. And then the diagonals bisect, so it tells me that this angle where I'm putting these dots are going to be equal. And then on the opposite side, something like that, okay? All right, now we're going to head over to this bottom question. It's going to be a proof question. So this question says right here, or these questions, say right here is to use the picture to answer the following questions. So GI is going to be perpendicular to what? So GI is the diagonal right here. And it's going to be perpendicular to what? So if you remember, well, the only thing that's going to be perpendicular is the other diagonal, which is going to be HJ or JH, whichever way you want to call it. All right, the next question says angle JGK, so J to G to K, so we're looking at this angle right here, is congruent to which other angle? Well, JGK is going to be congruent to 3 other angles in this triangle, but let's go ahead and pick the easiest one, which is going to be its neighbor. So it's going to also be congruent to HGK. Okay, now this says the measure of angle GKH. So going with this teal color down the middle, G, K to H, which if we remember those diagonals bisect or are perpendicular in the middle, so forms a 90-degree angle, is going to equal how much? Well, it's going to equal 90 degrees. All right, and then we're going to hop over to this next one. It says if the measure of angle JGH, I'm going to use my blue pen here, JGH, so it's talking about this entire angle is 132 degrees. Then how much is KHI? So K is here in the middle, H to I. So it's talking about a little baby angle right here. And so if we know that JGH is 132, we know that the whole angle H is going to have to add with that one plus the whole angle that we're talking about, JGH, to equal 180 degrees. So we will get that the angle GHI is going to be 48. And then I'll divide that by 2 to get that one portion, which is 24 degrees. Next question says if JI equals 4 centimeters. So talking about this portion that I'm highlighting in pink, if that is 4 centimeters, then what is GJ and what is GH? Well, we know that all sides are equal, so it is also 4 centimeters. All right, next page. When we're looking at trapezoids, which is the next shape, a trapezoid is going to have exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. All right, and so we're going to be talking about 2 different trapezoids. We're going to be talking about an isosceles, which is going to be the first one, and a right, which is going to be the second one. All right, an isosceles trapezoid, the sides that are not parallel are congruent. Let's go ahead and label that on the picture. So that's saying these 2 slanted sides, those are going to be congruent. And the base angles are also going to be congruent. And I will mark those angles here in purple. So this angle here to this angle is congruent. And then this top angle with this other top angle are going to be congruent. And fun fact about those angles as well, y'all, they are also going to be supplementary. So those angles should, these angles should add up to 180. So S to Q, those should equal 180 degrees. And then R and T, these should also equal 180 degrees. All right, right trapezoids. Right trapezoids have 2 right angles. That's what makes them a right trapezoid. Right there and right there. All right, let's look at actual questions dealing with an isosceles trapezoid. UW is congruent to what side? So UW is this side right here. Well, if you just listened, I told you it's congruent to that diagonal, VX. This next one says UX is congruent to what? So my diagonal is going to be congruent to my other diagonal. Okay? So WV. Oh, forgot those bars up there. All right. Now, angle VWX, so V to W to X, is So this little baby angle here is going to be congruent to which other angle? Well, so it's going to be the opposite side angle. So I'll do this in U, X, W. All right. And then if XU equals 12, then WV also is going to equal 12. All right, looking at our last shape, we're dealing with a kite. A kite has 0 parallel lines. All right, nothing's parallel on a kite. And then it has 2 pairs of adjacent congruent sides. And guys, what that means is this one is congruent to this one, and then these longs are going to be congruent to each other. The diagonals of a kite basically form across here. And the diagonals form perpendicular lines. Meaning that all of these angles here are going to be right angles and equal 90 degrees. The short diagonals form 2 incongruent isosceles triangles. And then that means that this happens here. And then the long diagonal forms 2 congruent triangles. All right. 2 congruent triangles. The long diagonal is an angle bisector, but the short one is not. So that means that this angle U can be split into 2 equal portions along with angle X, but the same does not apply to V and W. All right, so if BA is perpendicular to what? So BA is one diagonal, so it has to be perpendicular to the other diagonal, RE. And then the next one says triangle RBE, so R to B to E. You're looking at this. Is going to be congruent to what? Well, you're just going to read it upside down. R to A to E. Measure of angle RSB. RSB equals, well, that's in the middle. It's a 90-degree angle. And then if B to R, I'll use blue. If B to R is 13 degrees, how much is R to A? Well, those are congruent, so it's also 13. All right, y'all. If y'all have any further questions, make sure to ask your geometry teacher. Have a good one.